Carol, what are you doing here? I was speechless, unable to grasp the meaning behind those words. Sharon was the one who invited me to the wedding. So what was she trying to say? Next to her, Kevin looked entirely indifferent, making no attempt to defend me. Hey, Kevin, say something. Even when I called out to him, he kept ignoring me. I felt like my head was about to explode with anger and humiliation, but raising my voice here wouldn't change a thing. Fine, I'll leave. I stood up and walked away. About 30 minutes later, Kevin called me repeatedly. Eventually, I gave in to his persistence and answered the phone. What do you want? Hey, Carol, did you do something? Kevin sounded hysterical. Apparently, his boss and coworkers had suddenly started treating him coldly, leaving him shaken. I told your colleagues about your affair with Sharon. What? What are you talking about? When I revealed the truth, Kevin's voice trembled. I'm Carol Mirror, 33 years old. Right now, I'm a housewife. I met my husband, Kevin, who's 4 years older than me, at work. Back then, we were both in the sales department, and Kevin was my colleague. Kevin was a top performer, always achieving the best results. He was also the kind of person who readily offered help to struggling coworkers. Hey, is everything okay? That client can be pretty tough. Want me to help with the presentation materials? I was one of the people Kevin had helped. His kindness eventually drew me to him. Apparently, he also noticed my efforts and began to see me in a special light. If it's okay with you, would you go out with me? I really like you, Carol. When he confessed his feelings, we began dating. Of course, office romance meant worrying about others' opinions. I felt a bit uneasy about how our coworkers might perceive us, but Kevin was always confident. There's nothing wrong with us being together. Don't worry. Even now, I still remember how much I admired Kevin's composure. In reality, our colleagues were supportive of our relationship. Last year, Kevin proposed to me, and we got married. At his request, I left the company. Admittedly, I had doubts about quitting my job. I enjoyed working in sales, and my coworkers were wonderful. If possible, I wanted to continue working even after marriage. But Kevin wasn't great at managing household chores. Even if we both worked, I'd likely handle most of the housework. So I decided it might be better to embrace his preference for me to be a housewife. With that in mind, I chose to retire. For now, his income was enough to provide us a comfortable life. We've been married for a year, enjoying a happy life, but things started to change little by little. Lately, Kevin has begun coming home late. He claimed to be out drinking with coworkers or clients every night. In the early days of our marriage, others were considerate, and Kevin used to decline invitations. But since he enjoys drinking, he now seemed to initiate these outings more often. I've turned down so many invites before. There'll probably be a lot of make-up dinners for a while. I see. All right. I could understand Kevin's desire to enjoy social events, so I tried not to interfere. However, even on nights without parties, he still came home late. It seemed like he was working overtime frequently. Lately, you've been busy. Are you okay? Worried, but I gathered the courage to ask. But Kevin let out a heavy sigh. Since we're newlyweds, my boss was letting me leave early, but I can't expect that to continue forever. So I might be getting home late more often. I see. Just don't push yourself too hard. While I tried to be understanding, I couldn't help but be concerned about his sudden late nights. To make things worse, Kevin never let me know in advance, so I'd always prepare dinner and wait for him. Yet, he would never touch the food. Oh, you're still up? I already ate. With those words, he walked straight to the bathroom. He didn't even seem the slightest bit remorseful. and I almost let out a complaint, but I held back and quietly stored the leftovers in the fridge. At least he could eat it for breakfast, I thought. But even that idea was shot down. I prefer toast in the morning. I don't want leftovers from last night. It was as if he saw my cooking as a given. I couldn't take it anymore, so I finally said, "If you're going to be late, just let me know. Can you message me a bit earlier? That way I wouldn't waste time making dinner, and I wouldn't have to wait up for him." Just one word, like "I'm out," would suffice. However, Kevin frowned at my words. "Look, I'm not out having fun. I'm working. I'm too busy to text you, Carol. But you could still send a quick message, couldn't you?" I said, "It's impossible." "Stop being so demanding." Kevin let out an exaggerated sigh. It was as if even talking to me was a hassle. His indifferent attitude crushed me, leaving me speechless. After that, his weekend work increased, and we barely saw each other. I told myself it was for work, but I couldn't adjust to the changes in him. Meanwhile, Kevin's behavior grew increasingly suspicious. He began carrying his smartphone everywhere, even at home, never leaving it on the table when I was around. Even when I approached him, he would tense up noticeably, almost as if guarding something. "Kevin, you've been acting strange lately. Are you hiding something from me?" Unable to bear the tension, I asked him just once. Kevin avoided my gaze and replied, "These are work-related messages, Carol. Even if we're ex-coworkers, you're no longer part of the company, so of course I have to be careful." But why was he suddenly so cautious now? If he didn't want me looking, he should have done it since the marriage. His flimsy excuses only deepened my distrust. One day, a wedding invitation arrived at our house. It was from Kevin's coworker in the sales department, Sharon Wilson. When I was working at the company, I often went along with Sharon as her mentor. But to be honest, I don't have any fond memories of her. I think she probably disliked me. "Carol, could you explain it a little more clearly?" "Oh, sorry. This is..." "Never mind. I'll just ask someone else." Sharon would often ignore me, her assigned mentor, and immediately turn to other coworkers for help. And when mistakes were found in documents I hadn't reviewed yet, this document was supposed to be checked by Carol. She would use that as an excuse to shift the blame onto me. Even now, I still don't understand why she disliked me so much. But the fact that she invited me to her wedding must mean she has grown up. If that's the case, I need to act like an adult too. I plan to attend Sharon's wedding with Kevin. Sharon sent us an invitation to her wedding. That evening, I showed Kevin the invitation when he got home. For some reason, his expression instantly darkened. "Oh, yeah, I heard she's getting married. People were talking about it at work. Are you planning to go, Carol?" "Of course. I don't have anything else scheduled for that day." "I see." Kevin's eyes darted around nervously when I said I'd attend. His reaction was puzzling to me. "What's wrong? Did something happen between you and Sharon?" When I asked him, his face stiffened. His expression was nothing but suspicious. "Are you hiding something?" "No, nothing at all. But I'm too tired to talk to you about this right now. I'm going to bed." In the end, Kevin ignored my questions and cut the conversation short. Even after asking him multiple times, he never gave me a proper answer. 3 months later, the day of Sharon's wedding arrived. Kevin and I headed to the venue, which turned out to be a luxury hotel. It seemed the ceremony would take place in a grand ballroom. As soon as we walked in, I was struck by the size of the venue, the number of guests, the elaborate floral arrangements, and the lavish food. It was also extravagant. It must have cost a fortune. Apparently, Sharon's husband, Ronald, was the son of a company CEO. so that's why they could afford such a luxurious wedding. While I was still processing this information, I heard a voice from behind. "Carol, long time no see. How have you been?" Feeling like I had stepped into another world, I was relieved to see a familiar face. It had been about a year since I last saw my former colleagues. We eagerly caught up on each other's lives. Then, suddenly, "Thank you all for coming." Sharon, dressed in a stunning gown, approached our table. I was about to call out to her, but she walked straight past me and headed toward Kevin. "Kevin, Sharon, you look amazing. Congratulations." It was as if I didn't even exist. Sharon spoke to Kevin in a sweet tone, and Kevin didn't seem entirely uninterested either. "This venue is incredible. I'm really impressed. Since I had the opportunity, I wanted it to be as extravagant as possible." The two of them chatted happily. Unable to join the conversation, I just observed them for a while. A few minutes later, Sharon finally turned to look at me. I thought this was my chance and approached her. "Sharon, thank you for inviting me today." When I said that, Sharon burst out laughing for some reason. "Oh, you're here, Carol. What are you doing here?" "What?" I was at a loss, unable to comprehend the words that came out of her mouth. Noticing my confusion, Sharon gave a sly smile and opened her mouth again. "I only wanted to invite Kevin. You know, I didn't think a tag-along would actually show up. I can't believe you came." "A tag-along? I came because I was invited. If you didn't want me here, you shouldn't have invited me in the first place." When I said that, Sharon flashed a malicious grin. No. Usually, people can read the room and decline, right? You quit the company ages ago, so you're basically a stranger. Of course, I didn't want to invite you, but appearances matter, don't they? I couldn't invite Kevin without inviting you, now could I? Even so, according to Sharon, I was the one failing to read the room. But isn't it normal to attend when invited? Her way of thinking was beyond mine. Even after that, Sharon kept throwing insults at me without pause. Kevin, next to her, just looked away. He didn't even try to stand up for me, acting as if he had nothing to do with it. "Hey, Kevin, say something." Even when I called out to him, he kept ignoring me. It seemed he wasn't on my side. Meanwhile, Sharon pointed at me and laughed. I felt like my head was about to explode with anger and humiliation. But raising my voice here wouldn't change anything. If anything, it would only play right into Sharon's hands. "So, all right, I'm leaving," I said quietly, and got up from my seat. I couldn't stand letting Sharon say whatever she wanted any longer. Though I felt frustrated, I just wanted to get away from there. Sharon looked at me with a triumphant expression. "See, I told you. Just leave already. You don't belong here." "I see." Sharon waved me off dismissively with her hand. Kevin, still silent, just watched it all unfold. He didn't call out Sharon's cruel words or try to stop me. Feeling a mix of disappointment and anger towards Kevin, my eyes burned. But there was no way I'd let Sharon see me cry. I held back the tears and left the venue immediately. About 30 minutes later, my phone buzzed. When I looked at the screen, Kevin's name was displayed. I couldn't believe his nerve, calling me as if nothing had happened. I ignored the call and went home. But Kevin persistently called over and over again. Finally, worn out by his persistence, I decided to pick up. "What do you want, Carol? Did you do something?" Kevin sounded frantic. From what he said, his boss and colleagues had started giving him the cold shoulder. Their behavior had suddenly become distant, and they wouldn't engage with him even when he tried to talk to them. He seemed visibly shaken by the situation, and everyone else has been acting the same way toward Sharon. She's noticed something's off about the guests too. Did you do something? Apparently, Sharon had been given the cold shoulder by the attendees, leaving her visibly distressed. Even Sharon's relatives and Ronald had sensed that something strange was going on. Kevin, suspecting only me, had called in a panic, yet he still chose to defend Sharon. Sharon doesn't deserve this. Tell me what's going on. You're siding with Sharon over your own wife. And besides, how do you know it's my fault? No way. It has to be you, Carol. You're jealous of Sharon and started spreading rumors about her, didn't you? She's the star of the day. So stop ruining things with your petty nonsense. Kevin's voice grew more forceful with every word. He had already decided that I was the one to blame. You're holding a grudge because Sharon said something snide to you earlier, aren't you? Grow up, for God's sake. To make it worse, Kevin had the nerve to urge me to forgive Sharon for her harsh words, but that was simply impossible. Both Sharon and Kevin had clearly underestimated me. Something inside me snapped at Kevin's words. Oh, I see. You're protecting Sharon, aren't you? Ignoring your own wife like this. What are you talking about? This isn't the time for that conversation. Staying silent in that situation and acting like I didn't exist. Honestly, Kevin, I'm disappointed in you. I can't forgive Sharon, and I can't forgive you either. I unleashed the anger, directing it all at Kevin, but he still refused to admit his fault. No, I didn't ignore you. I thought you'd just laugh it off, Carol. Besides, Sharon didn't mean any harm by what she said. Enough already. You just didn't want to hurt your precious Sharon, your affair partner, didn't you? Kevin was at a loss for words. When he finally spoke, his voice was trembling. What are you saying? You care more about your girlfriend, Sharon, than your wife, don't you? If you're going to cheat, at least do it better. I know everything. What? Wait. Carol, hold on. There's no point in staying silent anymore. I've already told your coworkers about your affair with Sharon. Kevin had clearly never imagined I would discover his infidelity. He was struck dumb, unable to form a response. In truth, I had grown suspicious of Kevin's behavior and had hired a private investigator just in case. The result was that Kevin had been cheating on me with Sharon. All those overtime or business dinners were just excuses to spend time with her. The two of them had been meeting regularly. The busy work was a blatant lie, and he has been leaving work on time most days. While I was waiting for him, he was at Sharon's house, enjoying their time together. Knowing this filled me with a rage I could hardly contain. I will never forgive them. I thought about it and decided I would expose Sharon's affair during the wedding and confront her in front of everyone. If I revealed her infidelity to the family, friends, and especially the groom, it would cause her significant damage. With Kevin's boss and coworkers present, he would also have to face some serious consequences. However, once I arrived at the venue, I changed my mind. The groom, Ronald, probably didn't know anything about Sharon's affair. Dragging him into this mess would only hurt someone innocent. On top of that, many employees from Ronald's company were in attendance. It felt cruel to humiliate him by revealing such a disgraceful secret about his bride. So I decided to adjust my plan and confided the truth only to two former colleagues I trusted. One of them had a strong sense of justice and believed cheating was absolutely unacceptable. The other loved gossip and was notorious for not keeping secrets. Predictably, the story spread quickly, eventually reaching their boss. I had given my former colleagues photographic evidence, so there was no doubt about the truth. Well, I didn't expect the rumors to spread this fast. Are you not trusted by anyone? I said to Kevin, who responded by yelling. What the hell did you do? Do you have any idea how much suffering this has caused me? After being cheated on by my husband and insulted by his mistress, don't you think I'm the one who's truly suffering? Even so, you went way too far. Kevin's frustration was evident as he groaned over the phone. But with the rumor already out, there was no way to undo the damage. It's the truth, so there's nothing I can do about it, I said as I tried to hang up. Yet Kevin was still shouting, "Don't joke with me. Get back to the venue right now. Tell everyone the affair was a lie. Sharon doesn't deserve this." You're still worried about Sharon. Maybe it's time to start worrying about yourself. Shut up. Just get back here. Kevin kept yelling repeatedly, but I had no intention of returning to the venue. Besides, even if I did explain, it would make no difference. The photos I had shared were undeniable proof. Why don't you just give up? Also, I'm leaving the house for good. What? Why? Of course, I'm not staying with a husband who cheats. After getting home, I was already packing my things to move back to my parents' house. I had explained the situation to them, and they had encouraged me to divorce him as soon as possible. That's why I wanted to leave immediately. But Kevin clearly wasn't happy about it. You're a housewife. I'm the one who earns the money and takes care of you. And now you want a divorce over something like this. It was just 1 or 2 affairs. Can't you forgive that? Kevin didn't apologize. Instead, he doubled down. His attitude was so ridiculous that I couldn't even be angry anymore. I just laughed. Do you even hear yourself? Cheating is betrayal. I can't trust you anymore. Living with someone like you is impossible. You wouldn't survive without me. I can't believe how petty you're being. Kevin snapped and hung up the phone. His refusal to apologize left me completely disillusioned, but it didn't matter anymore. I grabbed my bags and walked out of the house. The next day, however, while I was at my parents' house chatting with them, the doorbell suddenly rang. I wondered who it could be and checked, only to find Kevin and Sharon standing at the door. "Hey, Carol, I know you're in there." I ignored them, but Kevin kept banging on the door repeatedly. If this continued, it would disturb the neighbors. Reluctantly, I let the 2 of them in at the entrance. "Excuse me, but what's going on? I told you yesterday I'm leaving, and now you show up here with Sharon. Stop trying to move forward with the divorce on your own terms. I'm not okay with this." Kevin was fuming. Beside him, Sharon stood with a smug expression on her face. "You spreading rumors about us at the office? That's low. Don't you think you owe Sharon an apology?" "Why should I apologize? Besides, the cheating is real, isn't it? Honestly, why don't you 2 just enjoy your life together already?" I didn't want to be dragged into this any further, but my words seemed to irritate Sharon. She raised her voice. "Don't mess with me. I didn't cheat. Kevin is just my boss. Spreading false rumors like this. Pathetic." Sharon didn't seem willing to admit to the affair. She insisted that they were only in a boss and subordinate relationship. She had been shown the photos by her coworkers just yesterday. And still, she made this claim utterly hopeless. "You really think taking your boss to a place like that is professional? Come up with a better excuse." "Shut up. I told you, it's not an affair." Even when I pointed it out, Sharon refused to change her story. In fact, yesterday at the wedding, she had desperately tried to explain to her coworkers that the rumors were lies. Of course, no one believed her. It's ridiculous that no one listens to me. This is all your fault, Carol. You hate me, don't you? That's why you're trying to ruin me. She said this, smiling with an inexplicable confidence. Apparently, she felt relieved that the rumors hadn't spread to Ronald or their relatives. "How dare you spread such rumors? If this causes my wedding to be called off, What will you do about it? This is outright defamation. You should pay for this. Even with evidence, Sharon remained defiant. Kevin, however, seemed oddly flustered. Perhaps he was shocked that Sharon had denied the affair. He looked at her, wide-eyed. Sharon, what are you saying? Come on, Kevin, don't just stand there. Convince her already. Yeah. Carol should pay for the damages. Kevin approached me, his voice lacking any conviction. And still, Sharon refused to admit the truth. Their behavior was utterly absurd. You cheated, yet you're asking me for damages. This is unbelievable. And by the way, don't you think you have somewhere else you should be right now? What, somewhere else? What are you talking about? Sharon tilted her head in confusion, caught off guard. I decided to enlighten her. Well, I've already told your husband about all of this. Don't you think it's about time you apologize to him? What? At that moment, Sharon's eyes widened in shock. In fact, I had already sent all the evidence of her affair to Ronald. It happened just a few hours ago, so Sharon probably didn't know yet. Her face turned pale almost instantly. Then Sharon's smartphone suddenly started ringing. Why don't you answer that? Well. She froze as she checked the screen. It was likely Ronald calling her. She hesitated, staring at her phone without moving. Kevin, clearly losing his patience, said, "Don't worry. It's just Carol trying to scare you again." He urged Sharon to take the call. Sharon, her hands trembling, finally answered. However, her face grew increasingly pale with every passing second. "No, I swear I wasn't cheating." Sharon desperately tried to explain, but Ronald, staring at the evidence photos, wouldn't believe her. I had gotten Ronald's contact information from a former coworker yesterday. Apparently, during the ceremony, he had noticed a change in the guest's behavior and was curious about the reason. When I told him about the affair, he seemed to understand. "Thank you for letting me know. I appreciate it." He probably never imagined learning about infidelity the day after his wedding. I regretted not telling him sooner. That's the only thing I feel guilty about. Why would you believe someone else's word over mine? Just listen to me, please. Sharon looked close to tears, pleading for him to understand. But nothing changed. Seeing this, Kevin grabbed a phone from Sharon's hand. "Ronald, you've got it all wrong. Sharon didn't cheat. This is all my wife's doing. She was jealous of Sharon and made up this story. I don't want to hear anything from you. Put Sharon back on, now." Ronald's voice was so loud it carried to my ears. Kevin clearly failed to calm Ronald's anger. Realizing things were getting out of hand, Sharon quickly took the phone back. That's when Ronald delivered his ultimatum. The engagement was off, and he would demand compensation. Sharon immediately started apologizing. "Wait, don't say that. I'm sorry. It's all my fault. Just, please reconsider. Hello, Ronald, don't hang up." But the call ended, leaving Sharon crumbling to the floor in defeat. "This is your fault. Look what you've done." She glared at me. "It's not my problem. If you hadn't cheated, you'd be happy now." "Shut up, I didn't cheat." This is the worst. I finally had a chance to marry rich. Tears welled up in Sharon's eyes. It seemed marrying Ronald, the son of a wealthy CEO, had been her dream. But now that dream was shattered. Sharon's wedding will surely be called off. Ronald told me they hadn't officially registered their marriage yet. At least that was one small silver lining in this mess. "You're paying the compensation Ronald is asking for." Sharon, who seemed to hold a grudge against me, started saying something shocking. "You've got to be kidding me. I'm not paying a dime. This is all your fault. Just accept it and pay up. I didn't do anything wrong." Sharon stubbornly refused to admit her fault. Instead, She seemed determined to pin all the blame on me. She was visibly upset, and I wasn't sure what she might do next. Sensing danger, I stepped back to distance myself from her. Then it happened. Both of you, that's enough. Just leave. Stepping in to shield me, my dad confronted Sharon. This was supposed to be my problem, and I didn't want to involve my family. So I told them not to come out. But the commotion had clearly worried them, and they stepped in to help. Kevin, I'm deeply disappointed in you. I can't believe you would hurt Carol like this. When my dad glared at him, Kevin visibly flinched. He might act tough with me, but he had nothing to say to my dad, who was much bigger and stronger. Kevin stammered, fumbling for excuses, but I was too tired to deal with him anymore. Just agree to the divorce already. And by the way, I'll be suing both of you for damages. What? As I threw that out, Kevin's face turned bright red, but with my dad standing there, he could only clench his fists and glare angrily. Meanwhile, Sharon, with tears in her eyes, looked visibly irritated. She seemed to realize that continuing the argument would be pointless. Kevin suddenly turned to Sharon with a smile. Fine, whatever. I'll agree to the divorce. But hey, Sharon, let's get married. Though he hesitated over the damages, he seemed ready to accept the divorce. I felt relieved by his response. But then, Sharon's face twisted in shock. What? What are you talking about? Come on, Sharon. We've been in love all along. This is our destiny. With an unnerving gleam in his eyes, Kevin pressed Sharon to marry him. This sudden change in demeanor sent chills down my spine. But as Kevin advanced on her, Sharon's disgust became more apparent. Why would I marry someone like you? I only stuck around because I wanted to make Carol miserable. That's all. So that's the reason. Unbelievable. The idea that she got involved with Kevin just to spite me was absurd. Realizing this, I buried my face in my hands. Yet Kevin wasn't ready to give up. But surely, over time, you grew to love me, didn't you? Come on, be honest. We were so in love. As if overwhelmed by his emotions, Kevin moved closer to Sharon. Panicked, she turned to me. Help me. Why should I? It's about time you leave, don't you think? Don't leave me alone with him. Please, Sharon screamed as she tried to escape from Kevin. But their relationship was no longer my concern. I opened the front door as my dad assured the two of them out. Get away from me. What are you saying? Come on, let's get married, please. Even after being thrown out of the house, Sharon's cries echoed for a while. About an hour had passed. Suddenly, the noise outside stopped, and the doorbell rang again. I felt a sense of dread as I cautiously checked the monitor. Standing at the front door were Sharon and two unfamiliar people. They turned out to be Sharon's parents. Sharon's parents bowed deeply and apologized. Kevin was nowhere to be seen at that time. Apparently, Sharon's parents had sent him away. We are truly sorry for what happened. Sharon's parents explained that they had just come from apologizing to Ronald. However, when they tried to take Sharon with them, they couldn't find her and didn't know what to do. Amidst this, Sharon had contacted them, asking for help. We're planning to take Sharon and apologize to Ronald again. We will make sure the damages are paid no matter what. Next to her parents, Sharon stood dazed, as if her soul had left her body. But when her parents urged her, she obediently bowed her head. I'm really sorry. Kevin must have pushed her to the breaking point. She seemed terrified the entire time until her parents took her away. Later, I also received a call from my parents-in-law, who apologized to me. They promised to keep Kevin away from me, which gave me a sense of relief. My divorce with Kevin was finalized smoothly. I also managed to receive compensation from both Kevin and Sharon. Ronald also extracted a considerable amount of damages from them. Sharon not only had her engagement broken off, but was also stuck with the wedding expenses. Both of them ended up in debt and are now struggling with repayments, or so I've heard. To make things worse, their affair became known at their workplace, and both were transferred to remote branches. Sharon's parents disowned her as well. Now she has no one to rely on, and continues to work under the judgmental eyes of those around her. Unable to quit, currently, she's living alone in a shabby apartment. It seems she is leading a life of hardships. Kevin couldn't endure being in such a rural area and quit his job, or so I heard. But when he tried to return to his family home, they wouldn't let him in. He's now jobless and homeless. For now, he's surviving by taking up day labor jobs. As for me, I'm still living with my parents. Recently, I started a new job. My parents have been supportive, telling me I can stay here as long as I need. But I can't depend on them forever. Once my income stabilizes, I plan to live on my own. My new workplace is full of kind people, and I've made friends among my colleagues. Going forward, I will forget the past and enjoy life. Despite being pressured by Henry and my mother-in-law Linda, I couldn't get pregnant easily. One day when I came home, I found Henry back from a business trip with Sophia, who was holding twins. "Look, I gave birth to twins. Congratulations," I replied formally, and then Sophia made an outrageous statement. "Their father is Henry." "What?" The two of them spread malicious smiles. "Sorry, you're just an infertile failure. So, you're no longer needed. I'm going to marry her, so let's get divorced." Henry and Sophia left, and while I was in shock, Linda called. "I heard divorced Sophia returned to town, so I had her meet Henry. She got pregnant so quickly, she's the perfect wife." Linda laughed as if it was amusing. "Did you encourage them, Linda?" "That's right." Even after the call ended, I was holding my mobile phone. A fierce anger welled up inside me. Henry, Sophia, and Linda. I will make them regret treating me like this. Get ready for it. I am Jennifer, a 42-year-old housewife. I've been married to Henry, who is the same age as me, for 3 years. I met Henry at a friend's wedding. I was attracted to his fresh, clean-cut appearance and bright smile. Henry seemed to be interested in me too, and we had a lively conversation at the after-party of the wedding. Before we parted, Henry asked me out. We started dating with marriage in mind, and 2 years later, we got married. During the pre-wedding greetings, I was warmly welcomed, but on the day of the wedding, Linda clung to Henry and cried loudly. Her obsession with her son made the guests chuckle awkwardly. However, I thought that if we got along well, things would be fine, even though I had heard similar stories about mothers of only children. I had no idea what the future held for me. During our courtship, Henry cherished me so much, but after we got married, he changed. He didn't start being verbally abusive, but he began to make a lot of demands and tried to make me comply. Jennifer is important to me. I want to protect you from other men. Using such reasons, Henry started interfering excessively and tried to control me. The first thing he commented on was my clothes and makeup. Henry looked displeased when I tried to go shopping in a sleeveless dress. "Jennifer, do you want other men to hit on you?" "What?" Not understanding the question, I asked back, and Henry said further, "It's indecent to expose so much skin. Now that you're married, you should wear something appropriate." I couldn't understand what was so indecent about a below-the-knee dress, but I asked anyway. "So, what kind of clothes do you think are appropriate, Henry?" Henry pulled out a character-patterned sweatsuit from the closet and handed it to me. Jennifer, you don't have any decent clothes. Besides pajamas, these are the only pants you have. Are all skirts out of the question? Of course. What if the wind blows them up? There are a lot of weirdos out there. You need to be more cautious. When he admonished me seriously, I lost the will to argue. Maybe it was just a difference in values. I didn't feel like going out in loungewear, so I postponed the shopping trip. The next day, a bunch of plain sweatsuits arrived addressed to me. These are just right. Since you're married to me, there's no need to dress up outside, Henry said cheerfully, and I protested. Then where should I wear all the outfits overflowing in the closet? Wear them at home. There's no need to show them to anyone but me. And honestly, you don't need makeup either. Just sunscreen is enough. He smiled. Why don't you stop going to the salon too? If you absolutely must, I can cut your hair for you. I was terrified. Is he serious? But I pay for my makeup and haircuts with my own salary. Isn't that a bit much to ask? I hesitated as I suggested this, and after a moment of thought, Henry made his decision. Fine. I'll allow makeup and salon visits. But from now on, you'll wear the clothes I approve of when you go out. You're my wife, Jennifer. Got it. I agreed, but the idea of going to the city dressed like I was about to clean the house was too much. I reluctantly resorted to changing into a dress in the station restroom before going shopping or meeting friends. Though he allowed me to visit the salon, Henry still had complaints about my hairstyle. Since you're my wife, I don't want you having a hairstyle that flirts with other men. After his persistent nagging, I finally gave in and cut my long permed hair into a short style. Jennifer, you look different. My friend I ran into was surprised, but it was too much trouble to explain, so I just smiled vaguely. Honestly, I didn't like being told what to do by my husband. But you're my wife, Jennifer, so I don't want you to stand out too much. I'm worried other men might notice you. When he expressed his concern like that, it was hard to argue. In the end, I had to tell myself it was all out of love and go along with it. Moreover, Henry didn't like it when I met up with friends. So every time, I had to tell him who I was meeting and when I'd be back, and take a proof photo with my friends to send to his mobile phone. When it came to meals involving men, even if it was a friend's husband, Henry was always in a bad mood. Whenever I attended, Henry would pick me up in his car. Even though I told him I'd come straight home after, he was afraid I might get too close to another man. He didn't trust me. Your husband really cares about you. Well, we're newlyweds. The teasing comments, half in jest, were exhausting to deal with each time with a strained smile. Yet Henry would always go out drinking on weekends, citing work as the reason. When I pointed out the unfairness, Henry would pout. I don't go out for fun. It's for work. If I cut down on these outings, my job could be at risk. Don't you understand? And he said with a half smile, if my salary gets reduced, you'd be in trouble too, Jennifer. You earn less than me. It made me angry, but it was true, so I couldn't argue. The people I go out with are my bosses or subordinates, so I can't take photos. But I'm not doing anything shady, so don't worry. When he insisted like that, I couldn't complain. Henry worked late on weekdays and drank on weekends. He was only home on Sunday nights, yet he wanted children soon. Not because he liked kids, but for his mother Linda, who wanted grandchildren. I want my mom to hold a grandchild while she's still healthy. I'd prefer a boy, but a girl is fine too. He said this arrogantly. What? This month didn't work out either? I really want to fulfill Mom's wish soon. I want a child soon too. Henry patted my shoulder consolingly. Well, I'm counting on you. I'm really looking forward to it. I was exasperated by his nonchalant attitude. Did he really think I could do it all by myself? Even though we were entering our second year of marriage, there was no sign of having children, and I began to think natural conception might be difficult. I had been tracking my menstrual cycle and basal body temperature, and I was careful about my diet. I heard that being cold isn't good for trying to conceive, so I took full baths, warmed my body with ginger and herbal teas, and did everything I could. But Henry, when I talked to him about it, just nodded without interest and continued his carefree lifestyle. I repeatedly told him to cut down on smoking and drinking, but he had no intention of complying. Even when I told him we should try to have intercourse 2 days before ovulation, he would schedule fishing trips or drinking parties. Do you really want a child? I started to doubt it. On the other hand, it was clear that Linda was desperate for a grandchild. My in-laws' house was an hour's drive from our apartment. Linda would invite us over every holiday with some excuse. She could just invite Henry, but for some reason, she always included me too. My father-in-law Mike was often absent, busy with golf and volunteer work even after retirement. Meanwhile, Linda, a housewife, spent most of her time watching TV. Her hobby was gossiping with the neighborhood housewives, and I had to put up with it every time. The worst part was that recently, she started pressing me about having grandchildren, tying it into her gossip. Listen, Jennifer. The Browns are boasting about their third grandchild. They're so obnoxious, don't you think? And the Johnsons, they have their second son now. Plus, their son lives with them. Such a considerate family, don't you think? Linda wanted us to live with my in-laws, but Henry had refused since before we got married because it would be too far from his office. Linda was unhappy about that too. So, she probably wanted me to at least give her a grandchild to satisfy her. This endless talk wore me out, and I wanted Henry to deal with it too, but as soon as we got to my in-laws' house, Henry would always go out with his friends. Henry works so hard all the time, he deserves to see his friends. Of course, Linda would defend Henry, but I was left alone, building up stress. Linda prepared the meals, and I did the cleaning up. She wasn't mean or sarcastic during that time. She just kept pressing me about having a grandchild. 2 years into your marriage and still no child? When will I get to hold my grandchild? It's not like you're doing this to spite me, right? She kept pushing, and I finally snapped back sharply. It's not like that. Is that so? But at this rate, I'm worried I won't get to meet my grandchild while I'm still alive. Right, Henry? Then Henry, who had been fiddling with his phone, laughed mockingly and said, Mom, Jennifer's trying her best too, you know. Why do you act like it's not your problem? With each exchange between Henry and Linda, my frustration grew. However, around the time we entered our 3rd year of marriage, Henry suddenly stopped talking about having children. At the same time, he started working on weekends and taking more business trips. And where he used to occasionally initiate intimacy on weekends, that suddenly stopped. Even when I hesitantly approached him, I'm busy, maybe next time, he would brush me off. The same happened with Linda. When we visited my in-laws, she used to incessantly bring up other people's grandchildren, but suddenly, it was like she became a different person and never mentioned it again. One day, I arrived earlier than planned at my in-laws' house and parked my car at the nearby coin parking as usual, then walked to my in-laws' house. Henry said he would come after finishing his errands, so I came alone. As I approached the house, I saw a woman in a loose dress chatting with Linda at the entrance. I'm so glad to hear that Sophia, who got divorced, has returned to town. Looking forward to seeing more of you. Likewise, looking forward to it. When Linda noticed me, her smile stiffened suddenly. Sophia turned to look at me with a curious expression and greeted me with a meaningful smile. Nice to meet you. I'm Sophia Jones. I live nearby. Hello. For some reason, Sophia looked me up and down rudely and then lifted her lips into a smile. Sophia, thank you for today. Let's meet again soon. Although it seemed they were in the middle of a conversation, Linda hastily ended it and sent Sophia away. Afterward, Linda led me into the room, made tea in a good mood, but seemed distracted. When Henry finally arrived, Linda took him to another room for a private talk. When they returned, Henry also had a strange, beaming smile for the rest of the day. I saw Sophia again 6 months later. She came to our apartment with her newborn twins. Henry, who had been on a business trip for 2 days, was already back home when I returned from work. For some reason, he was with Sophia. Look! I had twins! Congratulations! Responding politely to Sophia, who was showing off her babies excitedly, I asked Henry. Welcome back. By the way, why is Sophia here? Instead of Henry, Sophia answered. Actually, I am Henry's ex-girlfriend. Is that so? My calm response irritated Sophia. Don't you get it yet? Are you stupid? What? When I asked, Sophia dropped a bombshell. The father of the twins is Henry. What? Unable to comprehend the situation, I was speechless as Henry put his arm around Sophia's waist and pressed his cheek to hers. I should have married you back then. After our breakup, I was so lost that I ended up choosing this. Let's start over now. Unlike her, I'm liked by Linda, and we'll get along just fine. Confidently, Sophia smiled happily at Henry. Mom always liked Sophia. She was thrilled when we got back together. She was even more thrilled when Sophia got pregnant right away, and with twin boys. She praised her for it. See? I'm not like someone else. The excited pair then turned to me with mean-spirited grins on their faces. Sorry, but you're useless now since you can't have kids. I'm tired of you always obeying me. I'm divorcing you to marry her. Henry told me as I stood there in shock. I'm being kind by giving you a week. During that time, find a new place and move out. Here, sign these divorce papers and file them at the court. Henry left with Sophia, leaving the divorce papers on the dining table. Their loud laughter echoed down the hallway as they left the apartment. Am I being abandoned? Henry's constant commands weren't out of love, but just a desire to control me. As I stood staring at the divorce papers, my phone rang. It was Linda. If you interfere with those two, I won't forgive you. Speaking to me harshly, I flinched. I never liked you from the start. I always wondered why Henry chose a dull woman like you. Sorry for being dull. I apologized sarcastically. I thought I'd accept you as my son's wife if you gave birth to a grandchild, but you couldn't even do that. Useless and worthless. She spat out hatefully. I told Henry that Sophia went back to her parents' home. When they met again, they got back together quickly. They are really well suited. Why did they break up in the first place? Did you encourage the affair? I asked in surprise, and Linda admitted it without any remorse. Yes, I wanted Sophia to be my son's wife. Getting pregnant quickly was just perfect. Linda looked very satisfied. So, is it all my fault for not getting pregnant? Of course. A wife who can't have children is pointless. You need to be replaced by another woman. She stated such a ridiculous theory calmly. So you should file the divorce papers and disappear quickly. After barking for a while, Linda hung up the phone. Even after the call ended, I stayed holding my mobile phone. I felt dizzy with anger, frustration, and sadness. What do those people think of me? I can't calm down like this. Clenching my teeth, I swore revenge. Henry, Linda, and Sophia. I'll make them regret making me feel this way. Be prepared. You haven't moved out yet? It's been over a week. Henry kept calling and messaging me every day, but I delayed it using busyness as an excuse. Even after filing the divorce papers at the courthouse, I had a lot to do. Another week later, when I was ready, I called Henry, Sophia, and Linda to the apartment, and they came with grumpy expressions. Sophia said she'd rather live in the room I used to stay in than a new apartment. So we decided on this place. So hurry up and move out. It's rude to keep relying on your in-laws. If you filed the divorce papers, just go somewhere else. It seems you still have feelings for Henry, but he's Sophia's now. As soon as they sat down, the three of them started making noise, and I told them calmly. Henry and Sophia sat together, with Linda seated across from them. After serving tea for everyone, I sat down next to Linda and spoke harshly. I have no feelings for this person at all. Someone who lies, controls his wife, and makes children with his mistress. I don't want him at all. Henry seemed a bit guilty. Perhaps he had some sense of responsibility. Anyway, we can't move in if you're still here. Oh, did you forget? My parents paid the down payment and half the purchase price for this place. Did they? Henry blinked in surprise. I was astounded. Does he have a brain that forgets inconvenient facts? He's proud of working at a big company and earning more than me, but he's not impressive at all. I laughed inwardly. We split the remaining amount, you and I. My parents' contribution was larger, so the place is in my name. It means this is my apartment. Sophia and Linda were shocked. Henry, this is different from what you said. Fine. We'll give you this place. Sophia, let's find another place. Henry said arrogantly, and Sophia puffed out her cheeks. I was looking forward to spending time in Henry's room. Fine, I'll just ask my dad to buy me a high-rise apartment. Henry's income allowed us to live in this place, and now you're bragging about it like some nasty wife. I knew it. So, is that the end of your little speech? I smiled at Linda's snide remarks, feeling completely in control. No, it's not. The main topic starts now. The main topic? I asked you to come because I have gathered some evidence to report. From a large envelope I had prepared, I took out the investigation report and about 10 photos, spreading them out on the dining table. Henry and Sophia turned pale simultaneously, suddenly panicking. They scrambled to gather the photos, quickly hiding them in their pockets and bags, prompting an annoyed response from Linda. What was that? I couldn't see properly. Don't worry. There are plenty more images that haven't been printed yet. This time, I displayed the images on my mobile phone, showing them to Linda as I slid through the pictures. Henry and Sophia screamed and tried to snatch the mobile phone, but I brushed their hands away. Linda, peering at the mobile phone screen, turned pale immediately. You two have other partners, too? Their reaction was understandable. The screen showed images of Sophia and Henry, each entering and leaving hotels with different people, arm in arm. Come on, Mom. Don't believe that. She must have faked it. That's right. She looks so innocent, but she's actually very cunning. I shot back at their panicked excuses. There's no way an amateur like me could take such good evidence photos. I hired a detective agency to investigate the affairs. So, they are definitely real. If you doubt it, you can call this number and confirm. When I showed the business card of the detective agency, Henry and Sophia fell silent, their faces showing frustration. Finally, unable to bear the silence, Henry admitted, "Yeah, I've been seeing other people besides Sophia. I earned that money, so I can spend it however I want, right? Got a problem with that? Other men just won't leave me alone. What can I do? And Henry, you said I was the only one for you, you liar." Sophia, burning with anger, snapped back at Henry. "You said you were over the moon about finally being with me, but it seems any man will do for you." "Shut up!" Linda shouted at the two of them. She pressed her forehead, her tone exasperated. "I'm disappointed in both of you. I put so much effort into this, and you let me down." Seeing Linda's disheartened expression, I couldn't help but burst into laughter. As my shoulders shook with laughter, Henry, Sophia, and Linda stared at me suspiciously. "Sorry, Linda, just acting like a moral person was too funny. If you had supported Henry as a wife should, he wouldn't have cheated." Linda turned her attacks on me now. Her usual snide remarks continued. "If you had devoted yourself to Henry and had children, he wouldn't have strayed to Sophia. It's all your fault." For someone who introduced Sophia to Henry and encouraged the affair, she sure had some nerve to say that. While I was stunned and speechless, Henry and Sophia joined in, riding the wave of Linda's accusations. "That's right. It's all your fault. If you can't satisfy your husband and have children, it's no wonder he got bored." Poor Henry. All right, all right. By the way, Mom, you're looking quite lively yourself." When I spread out another set of photos on the table, Linda gasped and fell silent. Henry and Sophia, peering closely at the photos, let out dumbfounded sounds. "Really? Mom's boyfriend? A young lover? Linda, you're something else." I smiled at Henry and Sophia, who were both in shock. "I have recordings of their dates too. I want to hear them." "They're not anything inappropriate, right? It seems a private investigator recorded them at a cafe." Ignoring Linda's panic, I played the voice recorder. "Francois, I'll have the money ready soon, so please wait." She sounded so cheerful as she spoke. "The parents of my son's new wife are wealthy, so I'm flattering his wife to get money out of them. Sophia is simple-minded, so it's easy. Thank you so much. Now my sister can have her surgery. I love you." In his broken English, Linda responded happily. "It's fine, it's only $20,000. I love you too." Henry and Sophia widened their eyes and stared at Linda. "Who is this Francois? Is he trustworthy? Don't look like that." "It's fine." Linda laughed it off. "He's an Italian man working here. We met on social media. He said he couldn't afford his sister's surgery because he's poor, so I decided to help him out." Linda spoke proudly, puffing out her chest. "He likes older women like me who are nurturing. When I gave him the $20,000, he cried with joy. He's such a good boy." Henry looked devastated as he listened to Linda, who was in a dreamy state. Where do I even start? The name Francois is French. I'm sure everything about him is a lie. He seems like a con artist scamming women for money. "Don't speak ill of him," Linda yelled, and Sophia's temple twitched with anger. "So, you've been supporting this guy with money while pushing Henry and me to get back together? I can't believe you, you old broad." "Calm down, Sophia." Henry tried to soothe Sophia, who was furious. "Thanks to Mom, we were able to reconcile." Let me apologize. Can you forgive us? Henry. Henry stroked Sophia's head, and a smile spread across his face. I did get distracted by another woman, but I still love you, Sophia. You gave birth to our child. Let's make up. Sophia's face softened into a smile. Yeah, I was wrong too. In the end, I love you the most, Henry. Let's stay happy together. After gazing at each other for a moment, they both turned to face me. Are we done here? We need to go pick up our kids from the babysitter. We're busy taking care of our twins. You wouldn't understand, having been dumped by Henry. I glanced at the clock on the wall. Just a bit longer. They should be arriving soon. As I said that, the doorbell rang. I checked the intercom and let the guests in. Henry, Sophia, and Linda looked puzzled as two men appeared. Dad? And who are you? Henry asked, looking at the older man behind Mike. Don't you remember? He was the doctor we asked to do the fertility test. Mike introduced us. Henry's face showed recognition, but Sophia looked worried. You did a fertility test? You didn't tell me. Didn't I mention it? Henry replied lazily, while Sophia looked displeased. What brings you here? Henry asked curiously, and I answered on behalf of the doctor. I went to speak to him directly, but you seemed busy with Sophia and the twins. I explained the situation to Mike, and he brought him here. Despite my explanation, Henry was frowning at Sophia. The doctor met my eyes. When I nodded, he let out a small sigh and opened his mouth heavily. The truth is, Henry, you have male infertility. For a moment, the air in the room froze, and then Henry and Linda spoke simultaneously. What? Huh? As we all stared at him, the doctor frowned and continued, looking uneasy. Jennifer had no problems at all. But Henry, your sperm count is too low. There's no way you can have a child. Linda, Henry, and Sophia stared intently at the test report the doctor had laid out on the table. After a moment, Henry and Sophia screamed. Me? No way! Give me a break. This is unexpected. They were completely panicked. Sophia pulled at her hair and screamed in a high-pitched voice. I never thought it was azoospermia. This ruins everything. What are we supposed to do now? A plan? I got back together with you because a corporate employee has a better future than a self-proclaimed model who's only a part-time worker. But this is awful. I've been deceived. In her agitated state, Sophia started talking about things we hadn't even asked. Hearing this, Henry's face twisted into a look of rage. I forgave you for cheating on me. But you've done it again? I really believed we could make it work this time. Henry clenched his fists and spoke to her in a low, growling voice full of anger. You were cheating with another woman. You have no right to blame me. That was just a fling. It's totally different from you, who planned to have a child. The argument was so petty that Mike, the doctor, and I were dumbfounded. We couldn't even muster the energy to intervene, so we just watched the situation unfold. I cut ties with everyone else and chose you as the father. I should be thanked, not complained about. So, it wasn't my fault that we couldn't have a child, it was Henry's. The infertility problem that Sophia was talking about wasn't me, but Henry. When I forced my way into the conversation, Henry and Sophia looked at me with resentful faces. I didn't care and quoted the words Sophia and Linda had said to me earlier. Didn't Linda tell me that a wife who can't have children is useless? Then a husband who can't father a child is equally worthless. I smiled triumphantly at Linda, who bit her lip in frustration and glared back at me. Instead of the verbal abuse I expected, Linda turned to the yelling Henry and Sophia and shouted like thunder. I believed it was Henry's child. I can't forgive this promiscuous woman. And Henry, you're no better for getting involved with such a wicked woman. Divorce her immediately. I don't need you to tell me to divorce her. Don't act all high and mighty. You were cheating too, you old broad. Watching the three of them panic, Mike let out a deep sigh. He approached me and bowed his head. I'm sorry for the trouble Linda and Henry caused. When we hired a detective, we found out my wife's lover was also involved with other women. It took time to gather the evidence. He turned to the exhausted Henry, Linda, and Sophia. Let's go home. We'll discuss the rest there. Mike and the doctor calmed the three, who were about to start a physical fight, and loaded them into the car to take them back to their in-laws' home. The day after I filed for divorce, Henry and Sophia got married. However, they ended up divorcing in less than a week. They both complained to their friends and acquaintances, saying they never wanted to see or hear from him again. Linda didn't listen to Henry or her father-in-law, but she did pay attention to her relatives' persuasion. She finally realized she had been tricked by a con artist and tried desperately to get back the money she had given away, but the con artist, whom the police were also pursuing, had already disappeared. She had used her father-in-law's retirement money without permission, so he threw divorce papers at her. She cried and resisted, but eventually gave in. It was also revealed that she had taken on debts in Henry's name, leading to a huge fight with him. Mike and Henry left the in-laws' house, leaving Linda to live alone in the large house, feeling lonely. After divorcing Sophia, Henry moved into an apartment and transferred the alimony to my account in a lump sum, continuing his work as if nothing had happened. However, a local acquaintance who had changed jobs revealed the whole situation. The story of how he cheated on his ex-girlfriend Sophia, remarried her, and then divorced shortly thereafter reached his boss's ears, making them question his character. Henry was taken off the promotion track and had a significant pay cut. As soon as he became poor, his former mistresses lost interest in him, and he was left in despair, struggling to pay off the debts Linda had incurred. After divorcing Henry, Sophia returned to her parents' home and lived leisurely with her twins, being taken care of by her parents. Her wealthy parents paid the alimony to me in a lump sum, and she told them that her remarriage to Henry hadn't worked out. However, the certified letter I sent revealed that while she had relationships with multiple men, she was also cheating with Henry, and she became pregnant with a child whose father was unknown. Her parents were furious and threw her out of their house, so she had no choice but to move into a shabby apartment. Sophia started working multiple part-time jobs, leaving her twins in daycare, and worked tirelessly day and night. There was no one to rush her to have children or to impose their favorite clothes and hairstyles on her anymore. I let my hair grow long again. I bought cute clothes from my favorite store and enjoyed the happiness of dining with friends once more. I felt incredibly lighthearted and spent my days with a refreshing sense of freedom. Although I failed in marriage, I learned a valuable lesson about the pain of being deceived by superficial kindness. From now on, I want to enjoy my work and personal life to the fullest, without any reservations. I couldn't help but smile from ear to ear as my daughter-in-law, Melissa, and grandson, Eric, came to visit me in the hospital after I had fallen ill. After exchanging greetings, I tilted my head in confusion at Melissa's gloomy expression and the fact that she didn't bring the novel I had asked for during the visit. While averting her eyes unnaturally, Melissa seemed to muster up the courage to tell me something as she opened her mouth to speak. However, just as she was about to say something, Eric energetically leaped onto my hospital bed with his small body. Granny, will you get better after the surgery? Huh? Oh, it's really not a big deal. I guess I was just a little tired. Seeing your face, Eric, has completely rejuvenated me. As I smiled and made a gesture as if flexing my biceps, Eric, who saw this, also grinned happily. He peered into my face for a while and suddenly fell silent. I continued to smile while being gazed at by my grandson's beautiful eyes, which seemed to be deep in thought about something. Hey, Granny. Do adults laugh when they're lonely? What? Why do you ask? As I tried to ask him for his reason, Melissa hurriedly took out her wallet from her bag. She gently lowered Eric from my bed, handed him some change, and said, "Go buy yourself some juice," sending him out of the hospital room. Then, with a serious look on her face, she came close to my side and began to recount the event she had just witnessed. "My name is Allison. My husband, Robert, and I are both in our 50s, and we are known by ourselves and others as a loving couple who have never had a fight since we were young. I am a self-proclaimed freelance writer who writes travel-related articles. For some reason, I have always admired the sound of the title freelance writer, so I search for work online, accept assignments, and am now passionately weaving my words. Robert works for an online gaming company, handling tasks such as system construction, but his job is very demanding, and it is not uncommon for him to stay overnight at the company when a deadline is approaching. Our son and his wife live in the neighborhood, and we have a very good relationship with them. Our son William and his wife Melissa often invite us on overnight trips and plan other activities. When our grandson Eric says things like, 'I have fun when I'm with Grandpa and Granny,' I can't help but smile. However, Robert always declines invitations from our son and his wife, saying he is too busy with work, which is very disappointing for both him and me. Although Robert and I have a married life where we rarely have the opportunity to sit at the dinner table together, I am deeply grateful to my husband for working late into the night for our family. While my husband works diligently from early morning to late at night, I am not bound by time and freely pursue my freelance writing. When I have spare time, I feel really guilty about going on leisure trips with my son and his wife. Perhaps sensing my feelings, Robert always smiles with deep wrinkles etched on his face, as if a grin is carved into it. My work is like a hobby to me. You don't need to worry about it, Robert assured me with a smile. Yeah. Thank you, always, I replied gratefully. So, where are you traveling to next? He asked, curiosity piqued. Well, next is a tourist spot that has recently seen an increase in visitors. I began to explain. Robert listened to my conversation with a smile, nodding and interjecting appropriately. Occasionally, he would widen his eyes in surprise or nod deeply as if impressed, demonstrating his excellent listening skills. Wouldn't it be a great honor if someone read my travel article and visited the places I recommended? I spoke passionately. Whenever I talked with such enthusiasm, Robert's cheeks would relax into a happy expression. One day, while I was writing an article on my computer in my room, my fingers suddenly stopped touching the keyboard. I felt like I was making more mistakes than usual. My body felt feverish, as if the air conditioner's temperature setting was too high, and I continued writing the article while taking deep breaths, but eventually, my fingers came to a halt. From past experience, I knew I had a fever. I reread the text on the computer screen and let out a big sigh. I had a deadline for the requested article, and I couldn't just sleep because I had a fever. I forced myself to finish writing the article, but as soon as I was done, my body felt heavy, and I collapsed from the chair. Apparently, I had lost consciousness for a while. My son's family, who had come to share some dinner, found it suspicious when I didn't answer the doorbell. Melissa, who had previously been given a spare key, had the presence of mind to enter the house and found me collapsed on the floor. Then, my son and his wife took me to the hospital. It seemed that overexerting myself while having a fever had taken its toll, and I was diagnosed with transient fatigue. I also had a strong headache, so on the doctor's recommendation, I was admitted to the hospital for about 3 days. When I contacted Robert, he said he had finished work and returned home, but he was worried when he couldn't find me. He promptly brought me 3 days' worth of clothes. Robert bowed his head, his voice filled with sincere apologies. He said that he was busy with work now and wouldn't be able to visit the hospital until the day I was discharged. It couldn't be helped if it was for work. With a smile, "Don't worry about it," I told him. The day after I was hospitalized, my fever had gone down and I was feeling much better. Sitting on a clean hospital bed, I restlessly looked up at the ceiling and opened the drawers of the TV stand. It should be fine to take a little walk, right? I convinced myself. I took a stroll around the hospital and sat down on a small chair in an area with an adjoining shop and restaurant. I'm so bored. I noticed a man sitting a short distance away, reading a book while placing an A4 stand beside him. Oh, come to think of it, I had an unfinished novel at home. William is probably not at home due to work, so should I call Melissa and ask her to bring the novel from my house? I gave her a spare key, and it's easy to explain where the book I was reading is located. I called Melissa from the public phone installed in the hospital, and she readily agreed. Then, I returned to my hospital room and started reading a picture book that was placed in the ward. It was a book called Where's Waldo? I casually opened the first page and seriously searched for Waldo, only to realize that 2 hours had passed. Melissa came to visit me, and I looked up from the picture book. Feeling a strange sense of guilt, as if I had wasted my time in the most unproductive way possible in my life, I put the picture book back and smiled at Melissa and Eric. "Thank you for going out of your way, Melissa." After greeting her, I tilted my head in puzzlement at her gloomy expression and the fact that she didn't have the novel I had requested. While averting her eyes unnaturally, Melissa eventually seemed to muster up the courage to tell me something as she opened her mouth to speak. However, just as she was about to say something, my grandson Eric energetically leaped onto my bed with his small body. "Granny, will you get better after the surgery?" "Huh? Oh, it's really not a big deal. I guess I was just a little tired." "Seeing your face, Eric, has completely rejuvenated me." As I smiled and made a gesture as if flexing my biceps, Eric, who saw this, also grinned happily. He peered into my face for a while and suddenly fell silent. I continued to smile while being gazed at by my grandson's beautiful eyes, which seemed to be deep in thought about something. "Hey, Granny. Do adults laugh when they're lonely?" "What? Why do you ask?" "Because, when I went to Grandpa's house earlier, Grandpa was having a party with an unfamiliar lady. Even though you're in the hospital, Grandpa seemed to be having fun." "I see." "Grandpa is so sneaky. Having a party when you're not around. I saw it. They were drinking really fancy food and delicious-looking juice at home." I didn't know how to respond to Eric's confession. Unable to come up with a clever retort and trying not to let it show that I was clearly at a loss for words, I realized that the smile I had desperately put on was strained. Melissa lifted Eric off my bed, took some change out of her wallet, and said, "Go buy yourself some juice," sending him out of the hospital room. Then, with a solemn expression, she came close to my side and began to recount the event she had just witnessed. Melissa and Eric had apparently entered my house using the spare key, as per my request. Since it was a weekday afternoon, they thought no one would be home and entered the house without much thought. However, They found neatly arranged women's luggage in the entryway, and they could faintly hear Robert's laughter coming from the living room. Thinking, "Oh, is he off work today?" they approached the living room. Melissa thought he might be watching TV and laughing. However, through the slightly open gap in the living room door, they saw Robert sitting on the sofa next to an unfamiliar woman. Moreover, the woman was apparently leaning her body against his arm, whispering something faintly into his ear. Melissa instinctively scooped up Eric and left the house as is. On the way here, Eric asked me why we didn't say hello. I blurted out that Grandpa is forcing himself because Granny is not feeling well and he's lonely. I made up an excuse that I didn't even understand myself. Melissa apologized to me, looking thoroughly remorseful. I quickly said to her, "It's okay, don't worry about it. I'm sorry." Then, Eric returned to the hospital room with a happy face, holding a juice. Eric spent time on my bed, chatting about trivial things and laughing cheerfully. Melissa watched this with a complicated expression, but I told her in a small voice, "I'll be fine." After the two of them left the hospital room, I opened Where's Waldo in the suddenly quiet room. It's not that I particularly wanted to read it. It's not that I wanted to find Waldo, but I wanted to somehow sort out the indescribable feelings welling up in my heart. As I stared at the many people depicted in the picture book, my vision gradually blurred with tears, and I could no longer see anything. 3 days after being hospitalized, I was safely discharged. Robert, who managed to find time in his busy work schedule to pick me up on the day of my discharge, spent time with me with his usual gentle smile, so I spent the day as I always did. On weekday mornings, I make breakfast for him as usual and see him off at the entrance as usual. It's the start of the same daily routine as always, but beneath the surface of that life, my plan was beginning to take shape. The catalyst for the plan was William. He must have heard from Melissa that Robert might be cheating. He came while I was in the hospital and quietly expressed his anger. "Let's perplex Dad." I leaned forward with keen interest at my son's suggestion. Rather than being angry about being cheated on, I might have just wanted to confront him with the fact of his infidelity and fluster him. With William's cooperation, the plan to capture Robert's cheating scene properly was quietly underway. First, William consulted with a lawyer and hired a private investigator, resulting in obtaining photos of the cheating scene in a short period. In a detective agency located in a rental building in the bustling district, a dubious-looking elderly man handed me a file summarizing the investigation results. In the photos, Robert had his usual gentle smile, walking happily through town with a woman I didn't know. I had obtained that decisive evidence, but for some reason, I couldn't bring myself to blame him. I was certainly sad about being cheated on, but it's a fact that he has been working hard to earn money for the family. Is it right to focus on the infidelity part alone, neglecting the gratitude for that and putting the spotlight on our marriage up until now? If I confront him with the results of the infidelity investigation, and if it leads to divorce, what will happen to my life now? After leaving the office, I stood still in the crowded downtown area, feeling as if I had become lost. Even if I condemn my husband with the results of this infidelity investigation, what will happen to my life? With such uncertainty looming over me, I sit in front of my computer in the living room at home. My work as a writer consisted of small articles and columns, but perhaps because I had been doing it for a long time and gained trust, the requests never ceased. However, when I reread the completed articles and columns, I let out a big sigh. I don't think I have talent as a writer. I used to be good at weaving words together and creating works that touched readers' hearts. But lately, I feel like something is missing. I reread my past works and became anxious, wondering if my talent had disappeared somewhere. Am I emotionally weakened because my husband cheated on me? Even as I asked myself this question, I couldn't help but shake my head. It's not that I have changed. Surely, in the creative process, hardships and setbacks are necessary. When I first started working as a writer, it was so much fun. I was thrilled beyond words to put my thoughts into writing and have someone read them. Such enjoyable times can't last forever, and sometimes stagnation and trials will come. As I was pondering such thoughts, the house phone rang. It was from the detective I had hired for the infidelity investigation. I only vaguely remembered his face, but I recalled that he seemed suspicious. He quickly got to the point after a brief greeting. "Did you read the last line?" The detective said. I didn't read it very carefully. Since my assignment this time was an infidelity investigation, I thought it was unnecessary. But I happened to find an interesting fact. If you didn't know, Allison, I thought William wouldn't know either, so I casually included it in the document. I see. Given my profession, I've done a lot of infidelity investigations. You may not know this, but the behavior patterns of cheating men are almost always the same. I guess their brain structures are the same. But you know, I could tell the detective was laughing happily over the phone. Your husband's behavior was odd from the first day of the investigation. Normally, my job would be to capture the scene of infidelity in a photograph, and that's it. However, I talked to the lawyer, and since it's the 10th anniversary of the office's establishment, I decided to provide some extra service. After hanging up the phone, I looked through the infidelity investigation materials again. I carefully read the contents written there and took a deep breath. Why? Now, the words my grandson Eric said to me are deeply etched in my heart. With those clear eyes, without any doubt, he asked me a straightforward question. Why do adults laugh when they're lonely? 1 month later, I told Robert that I was going on a trip with my son's family and smiled at him as he saw me off at the entrance of our home. Pulling a carry-on bag that wasn't very full, I headed towards the station. Without any particular destination in mind, I simply let myself be swayed by the train, gazing at the scenery visible from the window. When Robert and I were young, we always took the train for our dates. Until we got married, we didn't own a car and always met up at a coffee shop in front of the station that offered specialty teas. On the menu, the names of the tea leaves, such as Candy and Dimbula, were meticulously listed one by one. We always arrived 30 minutes before the appointed time, and Robert always drank mallow tea. Mallow is a hollyhock flower. When a thin slice of lemon placed beside the blue tea, the color of a southern sea, brewed in a heat-resistant glass, is lightly squeezed, it magically turns the tea pink. I quietly watched this sight. It's beautiful, he murmured, not referring to the beautifully colored mallow tea, but quietly gazing at me. I couldn't help but give a wry smile at his usual cliché line. Thinking about it now, we were a foolish couple, but I was certainly happy back then. Even though I should be frustrated and angry about Robert cheating on me, for some reason, what I remember is the mallow tea that Robert always drank back then. Without giving it much thought, I entered a random coffee shop. There was no mallow tea on the menu. I chose a menu item labeled black tea, without the names of the tea leaves listed, and as I sat down, I let my gaze wander over the strings of characters printed in the book I had brought, which my mind could hardly recognize as sentences at this point. For a long time, I spent my time like that. Feeling uncomfortable staying in the same coffee shop for too long, I hopped to 2 more coffee shops. Those shops didn't offer mallow tea either. I just wandered aimlessly, walking around the city, entering coffee shops that caught my eye. And I felt a little disappointed when I unconsciously searched for that name in the menu items and couldn't find it. The mallow tea in my memories, was starting to become a vague color in my recollection. As night fell, I returned home. I inserted the key into the keyhole as usual and headed towards the living room as usual. Sure enough, there were Robert and a woman. The two of them were speechless. They were frozen in surprise, as if time had stopped. Quiet classical music flowed from the built-in speakers, and there were stylish hors d'oeuvres placed on the table. Warm steam rose from the blue mallow tea that the two of them were about to drink, having apparently finished their meal. I didn't utter a word. Robert didn't try to speak either. The gentle tones of the music spread throughout the living room, and a strange moment passed where we simply stared at each other. Eventually, William came in, making a rough noise, and when he spotted Robert, he let out an exaggerated sigh. Behind William, Melissa was also peeking in with an anxious expression. Hey, what kind of party is this? You don't mind if we join in too, right? Wait a minute. What are you trying to do, all of a sudden? As Robert stood up from the sofa, the woman next to him timidly grabbed his sleeve, looking frightened. She was a plain woman, about 12 years younger than me. She had unremarkable, delicate facial features. She wore light-colored jeans and a hoodie with a stretched-out neckline. Wearing hardly any makeup, she whispered in a reserved voice, "That's not it. Our relationship is not what you all think it is." "Oh, is that so? But we have evidence, like photos." William triumphantly held out the photos he had in front of the woman's face. They captured images of the two of them walking together, looking close, dining together, and so on. The woman averted her gaze from the photos shown to her and smiled faintly with a lonely expression. "I'm not very successful, but I'm a stage actress." "That's right. She's an actress, and as part of her character development, I'm providing acting guidance to help her gain experience in infidelity. Don't get the wrong idea." Caught off guard by the unexpected words stage actress, William and Melissa looked at each other. The woman calmly explained the circumstances up to this point. She admitted that she and Robert had indeed dined alone together in this house. They had also engaged in behavior that simulated dating in the city. However, she insisted that it was all part of her character development as an actress, and Robert was simply cooperating with her. There was certainly no definitive evidence that Robert and the woman were in a romantic relationship. But when I asked why Robert had to cooperate with such a thing, the woman, who had seemed plain until now, suddenly looked at me with an alluring expression. "That's because he was lonely, wasn't it?" "Lonely?" "Robert said that Allison is always going on trips and doesn't properly face him. He's busy with work, so he doesn't have time to be with her. I know that whenever I, who usually works remotely, mention going on a trip, Robert takes advantage of the opportunity to invite women over to our home and indulge himself. I also know that he told me he was staying at the company for work, but he was actually meeting with women. Everything Robert says about the company being busy is a complete lie. I know that he actually finishes work on time, but spends his nights out late. I know that my kind husband's smiles are all lies. But if I denounce everything as a lie right here and now, everything will fall apart and disappear. Like a soap bubble, it will burst and vanish." The mallow tea I drank with him at the coffee shop was like magic. It was so beautiful. Have I been under a spell since I met him back then? If I were to leave this place now with a forced smile, saying something like, "So that's how it was. I'm sorry for the misunderstanding," it would be like publicly acknowledging his infidelity. As I struggled to find the right words to say, Melissa put her arm around my shoulder from the side. "Allison, it's okay. Don't hold back. When people are lonely or sad, they don't force themselves to smile. People who display the opposite emotions of what they feel are usually liars. At Melissa's words, which likely had no basis, I couldn't help but laugh. That's right. That's true. When people are lonely, they don't laugh. I can't imagine continuing to live with a husband who justifies his actions to fill the gaps in his heart because he's lonely, and spends his days with a self-righteous smile. This is fine. All this time, I've been pretending to be fooled by Robert's kind smile. I've been playing the role of a foolish wife. Maybe I was deceiving myself, thinking that I couldn't go on living if I didn't do that. I had been a housewife for so long, dabbling in hobbies masquerading as jobs, that I had grown too accustomed to the lukewarm comfort of my life, almost forgetting what I truly wanted for myself. The future where I could earnestly write and publish articles about the things I discovered during my travels, and have someone read them. I should start considering that more seriously. Turning away from my always calm and kind husband, I knew I had to become independent. I could no longer believe his lies. Robert, I'm leaving you. I keep telling you, it's a misunderstanding. I'm just helping her rehearse her play. There's no evidence of an affair. And I can't afford any compensation. Sure, there might not be enough evidence for a lawsuit to demand compensation. But William and Melissa will support me. And I doubt our relatives will side with you given the circumstances. Robert gave a wry smile and ran a hand through his hair, as if admitting defeat. I suddenly produced the documents investigated by the detective, pointing to the relevant details. Robert's eyes followed my finger to the specified part, and his thin smile finally disappeared, his face turning pale. Although it wasn't related to the infidelity investigation, the detective had found that Robert's savings exceeded $1 million. You won the lottery a year ago. Congratulations! $1 million is quite something. No. You've been leaving work on time every day and taking a lot of paid leave. Did you think having money would keep you safe if your affair was discovered? I glared harshly at the woman involved with him. Even in a normal divorce, I would get at least $500,000. If you don't admit to the affair, I'll spend whatever it takes to win in court. But if you admit to the affair now, I'll only claim compensation from him. After all, you were just after his money, weren't you? The woman hesitated for a moment, then nodded slightly, looking down. William and Melissa seemed unable to grasp the rapid turn of events. In short, I was leaving Robert. It's as simple as that. The divorce was finalized without incident, and compensation was paid. After the division of assets, he still had a considerable amount of money left, but having won the lottery, he lost motivation for his job and was taken off the promotion track. The woman who had continued seeing him for a while also broke up with him as his financial situation worsened. She probably never achieved much success as an actress, as her name never became well known. William and Melissa offered to let me live with them, but I thanked them and chose to rent an apartment and live alone. Are you sure you don't want to live with us? I have plenty of money now, and I'm going to travel freely and explore the country. I resolved to live my life to the fullest from now on. It's my life, after all. I don't want to live by watching someone else's expressions or ignoring lies I can see right through. From now on, I will express what I think clearly to those around me. Now, I'm enjoying my work as a travel writer, a dream I had given up on while doing housework and raising children. Every time I read replies and support emails from readers, or messages saying they traveled to the same places I did, my heart, once blue, transforms like mallow tea with a touch of lemon, clear and warm, with a hint of tartness. Look at that broke company trying to act big. $300 in the bank. What a big joke. I'm here to withdraw $15 million. When I said that at the major bank, they looked down on me like I was some poor, insignificant business. The banker who served me this time had harassed me in the past too. I couldn't take it anymore. I decided I would give her a taste of hell and make her regret ever crossing me. My name is Letty Blythe. I'm 45 years old this year. Many of my peers are struggling to balance work with caring for aging parents, or are dealing with the loss of a parent and the changes that brings to family dynamics. But I lost both my parents when I was just 3 years old, so my memories of them are hazy at best. I have photos, so I know what they looked like. From what I can tell, they seemed like kind, gentle people. About a year after I entered the orphanage, one of the staff members told me, "Your parents were office workers and very hardworking. On their days off, they would take you to the zoo." But even hearing that, no memories of my parents came flooding back. Instead, most of my childhood memories are of the orphanage. After entering the orphanage, I was unbearably lonely being on my own. I loved animals. "I want to have a puppy," so little me would pester the staff, saying. But pets were strictly prohibited at the orphanage. So one of the staff gave me a stuffed dog toy instead. It had been sitting in storage and no other kid wanted it, but I instantly adored it. I basically never let go of that toy, carrying it with me everywhere. That much I remember clearly. Once I started elementary school, I did eventually resign myself to just keeping it in my room. But it remained my most cherished possession. Then, when I was in 5th grade, I got the idea to try making my own stuffed animals. I grabbed my school sewing kit and set to work crafting a stuffed puppy. It wasn't the prettiest thing. "You did such a great job on this." But one of the staff praised me, saying. Encouraged by that, I threw myself into making more stuffed animals. I got better and better each time. By high school, I was so obsessed that I joined the Handicrafts Club. In my senior year, I won an award at a crafting competition. That inspired me to seek out a job in the textile industry after graduation. I've had a variety of experiences since then to get to where I am now at my current company. Looking back, I'm amazed at how far I've come, to be honest. I hope to continue making a living in the future with the crafting skills that have sustained me through life. At least, that's how I feel. But lately, I've been tormented by this one particular person. Her name is Clarice. Clarice is a 50-year-old banker who lives in the luxury condo building right across from my place. I, on the other hand, am not living in any fancy home like that. My apartment is old, built over 30 years ago, and costs $500 a month in rent. This area used to just be open fields with a scattering of houses here and there. But about 5 years ago, housing complexes and high-end condos started popping up one after the other. My apartment building has been here since way before all that development. It still remains, surrounded by these newer high-rise buildings, without ever being renovated itself. Some might think that with such a nice luxury condo right there, I should just move into that instead. At first, I did briefly consider moving, but I ultimately decided against it. The rent is just too expensive, and I don't need all the fancy amenities that come with a luxury condo. Those condos apparently have tight security, observation decks with great night views, party rooms, and 24-hour concierge service. But I'm not interested in hosting parties or admiring vistas. Plus, my landlord upgraded to high security locks for each unit and installed security cameras out of crime concerns. My apartment doesn't have a grand entrance or anything, but for someone like me who doesn't keep expensive items at home, this is plenty. I can't justify paying over $2,000 a month in rent just to live in a luxury condo. Different lifestyles suit different people, after all. Clarice seems to be someone who likes surrounding herself with upscale things. The rings and necklaces she wears are all from high-end brands. Whenever she runs into me taking out the trash, I just bought this new piece. I already got tired of the ring I got 2 months ago. She brags. At the same time, she looks down on me in my more modest attire. It's such a nuisance. Aren't you embarrassed to go around dressed like that? Should I give you some of my designer items? Actually, never mind. She made fun of me like this just last week. It was infuriating. On top of that, she knows my unit number. She probably saw me coming and going from my apartment by chance. Because of that, I had an exquisite French meal today. Ah, it was so delicious. She occasionally shows up at my door to boast. All I want is to relax at home, but having to listen to her insipid bragging ruins that. And she doesn't leave after 5 or 10 minutes. She blabbers on for over 20 minutes. When I saw that ring, I couldn't help but exclaim, "This is my destiny ring." Not destiny partner, destiny ring. Life can be funny like that, you know. She gets all worked up like this, talking in an overly loud, emotional voice. It bothers the neighbors. The walls in my apartment are thin, so if you're even a little loud, everyone can hear it. Excuse me, there are other residents here too, so could you please keep your voice down a bit? Also, it's already 8 p.m. and I'd like to eat dinner. Even when I say this, she pays me no mind. I'm graciously sharing my superior knowledge with you, and this is how you act. Should I tell you about the necklace I'm wearing right now too? She says ridiculous things like this, completely unwilling to listen. The other day, my next-door neighbor Maurice got fed up. "Hey! You're being too damn loud. Can't you see Letty doesn't want you here?" And angrily came over. Seeing the intimidating Maurice, Clarice's face filled with fear. "I am so sorry." She let out a shriek and then fled at full speed. I felt relieved. Heh, that was nothing. We neighbors gotta look out for each other. But what's the deal with you and her? Well, actually, I gave him a quick rundown about her. Ah, she's one of those luxury condo people. Bit of a local celebrity, huh? But why is she so fixated on you? It's not like neighbors get that close these days. So here's the thing. I could understand his confusion. It's extremely rare for someone to be this persistent in harassing a neighbor just for seeming poor. The reason things have escalated to this point is because I had a run-in with her in the past. It was about 6 months ago. I had business at a major bank branch, so I stopped by the teller window. The teller who assisted me that time was none other than her. She greeted me. "Hello," but I got the distinct feeling she was looking at me with a condescending gaze. However, I hesitated to point that out to a bank employee I was meeting for the first time. I figured I was probably imagining it, so I started to tell her what I needed. I have a 1 p.m. meeting scheduled with the branch manager. I'm Letty Blythe. I was told to let the front desk know, and I would be shown to the conference room. I didn't think I said anything strange, but Clarice suddenly blew up at me. "Huh! Don't you lie to me. Ms. Blythe already arrived a long time ago." "What?" I was at a total loss, getting scolded like that out of nowhere. I mean, I wasn't lying at all. Flustered, I checked my schedule book, wondering if I had the date or time wrong. But no, I didn't. Could you please double-check? I should have a meeting scheduled in the conference room at this time. I politely repeated my request, but she still refused to listen. "I'm telling you. You're just a fake one, aren't you? Enough with the lies, tell me the truth already." No, I am the real one. I had important business to attend to, so I couldn't just say okay then and leave. I even showed my ID, but she claimed that was fake too and refused to believe me at all. As I wondered what to do, the branch manager, having heard the commotion, came running over. "I am so sorry, Ms. Blythe. Right this way to the conference room." He escorted me, so it worked out somehow. Later, I heard from the branch manager that a completely different person, also named Blythe, had a meeting scheduled with him from 12 p.m. that day. Clarice had been aware of that other Blythe, but had completely forgotten about my existence, apparently. After my discussion with the branch manager concluded, I sincerely apologize for the misunderstanding. She did apologize to me, but with a sullen look on her face. It didn't seem like she was truly remorseful, so my frustration wasn't entirely resolved. However, it would be pointless to expect a heartfelt apology from someone who gets that angry at a stranger over a misunderstanding. I came to terms with that and let it go. But then, a week later, as I was taking out the morning trash, Clarice came dashing out of the luxury condo across the street, eyes sparkling. I remember my body going stiff with fear. Can I help you? I live in this condo building." "So you live in that apartment over there, huh? Turns out we're neighbors." Hearing that, I felt like I might faint. Sensing she was up to something, Clarice then said the most outrageous thing. "You made me into a laughingstock. How are you going to make it up to me? Huh? Because of me." The root cause was her misunderstanding in the first place, so her resentment was completely misdirected. The branch manager scolded me, and regular customers said I was scary. "It's all your fault." She glared at me with a look of bitter resentment, like a demon. From then on, she apparently saw me as her sworn enemy. She harasses me every chance she gets. It's a huge nuisance. I considered moving, but she only stops by 2 to 3 times a month at most. Factoring in the cheap rent and all, moving just because of her felt like a waste. Clarice herself seems to be keeping things to a level where I won't report her to the bank or be driven to move. I finally found a good little prey. "I'm going to have so much fun tormenting you." She said creepy things like that with a grin. Some people might think it's better to move in that case. However, I had heard certain rumors about her and the luxury condos. Even Maurice. "She's a real piece of work, targeting you like that. But I reckon you only gotta put up with it a bit longer. Might as well wait and see how it plays out." After hearing the whole story from me, said, "Still, trouble has a way of striking without mercy." I had another errand that took me to the major bank branch. As my bad luck would have it, Clarice was at the teller window. I instinctively wanted to leave, but it couldn't be helped. With an unpleasant smirk, "Please have a seat and wait. We'll call you when your number is up." Clarice handed me a number ticket and said, the bank was extremely crowded, so I thought it would take quite a while. And sure enough, I was right. Incredibly, I ended up waiting a total of 5 hours. I tried to kill time by working on my tablet and, with permission, going out to do some shopping partway through. But it was simply far too long. "Thank you for waiting for so long." She called for me with a smile, and I realized she had deliberately made me wait until the very end. However, pursuing the matter would be pointless since she clearly wouldn't apologize. And it would be a hassle to make a big scene at the teller window. Swallowing my frustration, I said, "I'd like to withdraw $15 million. It's quite a large sum, but I notified the bank I would be withdrawing it today. Please process the transaction." Even I realized the amount I stated was rather unrealistic, but Clarice gave me a condescending look. "A broke little company like yours is gonna try that? You've only got $300 in your account. What a load of hot air. Huh? $300 in my account? That can't be right. What on earth is she talking about? Excuse me, but I think you must be mistaken again. I'm quite certain I'm scheduled to withdraw $15 million today. Please double-check your records carefully. I implored her, but Clarice wouldn't listen. I'm not falling for some broke person's excuses. Go on, shoo! Get out of here! Wait a minute! Can I please speak to a different teller? Realizing she was a lost cause, I tried to seek help from someone else. But we only have trainees working today, and the branch manager is out. For someone spouting nonsense about $15 million, I'm the only one who can deal with you. She insisted. Indeed, the other bank employees were all young and giving me troubled looks. Don't you dare get involved, she told them forcefully. This person is just trying to pin her own mistake on me. She's actually the CEO of some broke company with only $300 in its account. With their colleague Clarice asserting this so strongly, truly no one else stepped in to help. As I wondered what to do, she said, "Go on, don't just stand there in silence. Leave. I don't want to look at some poor, compulsive liar." She actually tried to force me out. The people around me were giving me cold stares too. I realized I wouldn't get any support if I stayed there any longer. I decided to leave for the time being, but I couldn't take it anymore. I could feel the intense anger heating up my entire body. And so, I vowed to give her the full wrath of hell. The next day, as I returned to my office from the conference room during my lunch break, I casually glanced at my smartphone. I had accidentally left it behind and wanted to check if I had gotten any calls. To my surprise, there were over 30 missed calls, all coming in after 11 a.m. It was the bank trying to reach me. Figuring it must be about yesterday's incident, I immediately called them back. Then, I am so sorry about yesterday. I heard the voice of Clarice, now completely flustered and apologetic. I want to properly apologize to you in person, so please come to the bank. Understood. I'll head over right away. Luckily, I didn't have any afternoon appointments. I scarfed down my lunch and made a beeline for the bank. There I found a pale-faced Clarice and the branch manager. We are terribly sorry for yesterday. Please, right this way to the conference room. The branch manager showed me in, and we entered the conference room. As soon as I sat down, Clarice launched into a frantic apology. I am extremely sorry. To think I made the same misunderstanding again. I knew it. So who did you confuse me with this time? Hearing the details, it turns out the other Blythe she had mistaken me for before was involved again. Apparently that Blythe is the CEO of a company in such dire financial straits that it's on the verge of bankruptcy. That Mr. Blythe seemed so poor, with only about $300 in his account. I mixed him up with you. Are you truly remorseful? That's incredibly rude to the other Mr. Blythe too. When I said that coldly, Clarice and the branch manager apologized again. Letty Blythe is the president of a stuffed animal manufacturing company. I explained before that her business is doing well. The branch manager scolded her harshly. That's right. I currently run a stuffed toy maker. After graduating high school, I worked at a company that produced small trinkets and plushies to sell at gift shops. Eventually, wanting to make original products that would bring people joy, I established my own company. I chose to focus on stuffed animals because I've had an attachment to them since I was little. I hope that, like they did for me, Stuffed toys can provide comfort to children who need it. By the way, the reason I needed to withdraw $15 million was due to various factors like transferring some funds to accounts at other banks and renovating our manufacturing plant. Even during the meeting that led to Clarice developing a grudge against me, I had discussed this matter. Since such a large sum of money was involved, I wanted to clearly explain the reasons for the withdrawal. Still, that was a terrible misunderstanding. How could you get it so wrong? Well, since you live in that dirty, old apartment building, I just assumed your business must not be doing well. Instead of simply apologizing, she said unnecessary things. My company isn't that large, and I try not to be too extravagant for the sake of the future. It's not good to look down on people based on where they live. When I said that in an irritated tone, the branch manager apologized again. I am truly sorry for Clarice's behavior. She will be fired, so... Yes. I hope you can forgive me in light of that. Clarice also apologized repeatedly with a desperate look on her face. Is it because of the mistakes this time and last time? Or was it discovered that you were harassing me near my home? Harassing? Why would she say such an unnecessary thing? It seemed they hadn't heard about that part, so I told them everything as payback. The branch manager. I don't even know how to apologize. Stop bothering Ms. Blythe immediately. Lectured her. Yes. I won't interact with her anymore, so please forgive me. Seeing Clarice drenched in nervous sweat and looking completely haggard, I felt a bit of catharsis. Incidentally, the reasons for her firing were habitual negligence of duties and bullying of colleagues. I later heard her warnings to the juniors not to get involved were simply because she wanted to be intimidating and throw her weight around. My incident was apparently the decisive factor in her termination. The bank is probably better off without someone like her. And so, she was officially fired sometime after that. 1 week later, at night, I got home late from work, arriving by taxi around midnight. Just then, I saw a woman with a suitcase and backpack emerge from the luxury condo across the street. Even from a distance, I could tell it was Clarice. But despite the late hour, she was wearing sunglasses. Because of that, she didn't seem to see in front of her very well. As she descended the stairs near the entrance, she took a hard tumble. The sight of her rolling down with her suitcase was quite comical. I couldn't help but laugh. The night was quiet, so even a small sound carried. Clarice seemed to notice me. She took off her sunglasses and marched over. Hey, what are you laughing at? Sorry, it was just funny seeing you fall like that. When I answered her honestly, Clarice's face turned red. Don't laugh at other people's misfortunes. Instead of hanging out so late at night, hurry up and go home. I can't help it, I was working. More importantly, Clarice, what are you doing with sunglasses and so much luggage this late? Where are you going? When I sharply questioned her, oh, I'm just going on a little trip. She made a strained excuse. You're clearly flustered. There's no public transportation running in the middle of the night like this. Rather than a trip, this has more of a midnight run vibe. It's not a midnight run. I'm just moving out. She hastily denied it, but it must have been close to 3 a.m. No one moves out at this hour. You must have some incriminating circumstances and don't want to be seen leaving. How can you read my mind like that? She was shocked, but I think anyone could figure out that much. Don't tell me, you got in a fight with your husband and he kicked you out? How do you know? This is getting creepy. Hit with the truth, Clarice plopped down right there. But this isn't such a big deal either. You'd argue with your husband sometimes, right? I saw you yelling near the entrance many times. Indeed, living across the way, I inevitably catch glimpses of the luxury condo residents from time to time. Clarice would occasionally go out with her husband. You are the one earning money, so it's no big deal. It's because you keep spending that we can't save no matter how high my income is. And they'd have shouting matches like, you talk so loudly. I can hear it even from inside my apartment sometimes. I've never spoken to your husband, but I know his name is Terrence. As I calmly explained, she hung her head in embarrassment. Oh no. I can't believe you overheard such ugly scenes. That's why I figured you'd end up divorcing and moving out eventually. Plus, a lot of people move out of there within 2 to 3 years. They do. Could it be a haunted spot? That must be it. I keep getting hit with misfortune because of evil spirits. She's letting her imagination run wild, but that's not it. The rent there is really high, right? A lot of people can't maintain that standard of living and move out. As you'd expect, this luxury condo is for the wealthy. Temporarily successful investors and CEOs live there, but it seems difficult for them to keep paying over $1,000 a month in rent. Many move out within 2 to 3 years. Is that so? Well, I do have the financial means. If I hadn't gotten divorced, I could have kept living there normally. Clarice still puts on airs, but I can't help looking at her skeptically. Really? You were in quite a financial bind, weren't you? On what basis are you saying that? It's not good to make wild speculations. She argues back desperately, beads of sweat on her forehead. I have my reasons. First of all, you're always wearing brand name items, so I assume you spend quite lavishly. It's far more than a bank teller's salary could afford, right? How do you know the prices of brand name goods? She looks at me with the shock of discovering a new species. How rude. I'll have you know, I do business with my fair share of wealthy people. These days, you can easily look up the prices of brand name items online. That's true. As Clarice looks uncomfortable, I continue. If you're spending that extravagantly, it's clear you don't have much money. I don't know what your husband does, but he must have a high salary. You took advantage of that to splurge as you pleased, so you got kicked out. That's what I think. Whoa! You see right through me. She looks completely spooked, but she basically revealed all this herself. After all, I've seen Clarice and Terrence have flashy arguments in front of the entrance before. What do you mean? Get out! I'm at my limit with a wife who spends so much money without thinking of the future. Who do you think is earning that cash? They had that sort of exchange, and I've overheard similar conversations from time to time. So it was easy to imagine she got kicked out over money. After I explained all this, she looked utterly devastated. I thought people didn't get to know their neighbors these days, but you noticed so much. I do live right across from you. Sometimes I can't help but notice things. When I put it bluntly, Clarice covered her face with her hands and froze. How mortifying. To think I was such an open book. I heard it even when I didn't want to. Of course I'd find out if you're yelling that loudly. I retorted mercilessly, causing her to look even more ashamed. She tried to hide behind her suitcase. I wanted to sneak away because I didn't want anyone to know I got kicked out for being a spendthrift. Having everything brought to light is the worst. Too bad the person you least wanted to find out did. When I stated it plainly, Clarice shrank back further, looking even more uncomfortable. You've got that right. You really never know what life will bring. Well, you don't need to get all philosophical about your whole life. More importantly, if you're moving, shouldn't you get going? Passers-by have been glancing over here. And indeed, behind us, a man was looking our way with concern. In the middle of the night, two women were facing each other. One was trying to hide behind a suitcase. Of course that would make someone uneasy. "It's all right," I called out to him, and he left. But he still had a suspicious look on his face. She watched the scene unfold with a despairing expression. "Why are there people up so late at night?" This area has turned into a proper residential neighborhood. Sometimes there are folks who work late and come home in the middle of the night. As I explained what should have been obvious, she exclaimed, "I can't stay here any longer." And with that, she dashed off, disappearing into the darkness. She's a noisy one, but I'd be glad if she's finally gone for good. With that thought, I returned to my apartment. However, a month later, I spotted a figure pacing back and forth many times in front of the luxury condo. As soon as that figure saw me, they approached. "Clarice, is that you?" Indeed, it was none other than Clarice, who I thought had left for good. I had gone for a walk to enjoy the nice weather and was returning in high spirits, but now that was ruined. Actually, I did move out of this luxury condo, but I couldn't find a new job. So I thought I'd somehow get my husband to take care of me again and came here. In the end, you're still relying on your husband, huh? Well, good luck persuading him then. I let out an exasperated sigh and tried to leave, but Clarice stood in front of me. The truth is, my attempt at persuasion already failed. I was walking around wondering what to do when I ran into you. I see. There's nothing I can do for you, so please move aside. Not wanting to get dragged into her mess, I tried to dash past her to my apartment entrance. But she persistently blocked my path. Wait! I need a little help." Hearing those words, I couldn't believe my ears. "Did you forget what happened between us? Take a good look at your own actions. I know it's an unreasonable request. I'm not asking because I think there's a high chance. I'm betting on a slim possibility here." "Why do you think there's even a possibility?" "I have zero intention of helping you," I said coldly, trying to hurry into my unit. How cruel. But then she started to cry. "It's humiliating for me too, you know. And yet, to say you don't want to help, you must have lost all sense of human compassion." "Are you saying it's my fault?" "Do whatever you want." She talks as if acknowledging her own wrongs, but then says I've lost all sense of human compassion. It's clear she hasn't reflected at all. Dealing with someone like this is just a waste of time. Fed up, I pushed her aside and climbed the stairs. "Wait! You're really abandoning me!" She let out a loud cry and chased after me. But at that moment, "Shut up! How many times do I have to tell you?" Maurice came bursting out of his apartment. As if on cue, two other residents also emerged. "I was taking a nap, and now I'm wide awake. You're that person who made a ruckus sometimes, right? Letty said you moved out, so why are you back?" Bombarded with remarks like these, Clarice froze in shock. "You don't have to say all that out of nowhere." "No, that's not it. We've been bothered by your yelling for ages. We have a right to complain." Maurice angrily gave her a scary look, causing Clarice to cower. I suppose so. Still, you neighbors sure are close." This apartment building is pretty old. Some people have lived here for over a decade. The residents have known each other a long time. It's a rare apartment complex these days with such a tight-knit community. As I explained in a cold, matter-of-fact tone, Maurice and the two other residents closed in on Clarice. "Get out," they said in a voice that seemed to rumble from the depths of the earth. Even Clarice realized this was bad news. "I'm so sorry." Her body trembling, she fled. "Don't you ever come back," I yelled after her, retreating back. Perhaps thanks to the power of this neighborhood watch, Clarice stopped showing her face around the apartment. I didn't know what happened to Clarice after that, but I found out by chance when I went on a business trip. I entered a restaurant to have lunch, and there she was, working as an employee. Seeing me must have really thrown her off. "Why are you here?" "Because," she screamed. Of course, the male manager scolded her, but she seemed to have completely lost her composure. She dropped a glass of water, knocked over a salad. Mistakes left and right. "I'm terribly sorry," she apologized over and over. "You're completely incompetent. You're fired." But the manager berated her. The light may never shine on Clarice's life again. I couldn't shake the feeling. As for me, I'm still running my company to this day, steadily growing the business. A stuffed animal we recently released is selling well. I'm grateful we've entered mass production. I'm getting messages of thanks from children across the country, which makes me glad I chose this line of work. My relationships with the apartment residents are still good too. We often remark how nice it is that things have become peaceful. I'm so happy to be able to spend ordinary days without incident. Clarice was a real nuisance, but she taught me just how precious a mundane everyday life is. In any case, I'm fortunate to have found the best possible home. I want to live with a sense of gratitude for that. With such thoughts in mind, I'm working hard again today.